Hello everyone, this is Inku. I'm a speedrunner from France and I'm going to walk you through the 90% speedrun of Zelda the Minish Cap as part of my submission for ESA 2026 Winter. So, Zelda the Minish Cap was one of the rare Zelda games developed by Capcom instead of just Nintendo. It came out in 2004 and was the last of its kind on the GBA. So, kind of the end of an era right before Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks came out on the DS. So basically, last game with this much of pixel art at this level. Okay, so I've run this game since about mid 2023 after seeing Myth 197 run it at GDQ, which really inspired me since it was already a big childhood game of mine, and all the crazy glitches and everything made me want to run it, and I've been grinding the game ever since in multiple categories, so any percent, glitchless, even fire rod, which is a hack of this game, and not 100% yet. I've gotten a PB in this category recently in July, in summer of this year, which was a 1 hour 31:22 seconds. And right now you're watching a stream VOD of mine, and this was like the 4th run I've done derusting after getting this PB like 4 months ago right now. A good thing about this run is I've been able to showcase many of the very cool recent tech we can actually pull off in a run. This includes like vaati manip until vaati 2, so final boss of the game, notoriously difficult, and big octo manip, and first try clip, which is a frame perfect input. So yeah, very cool stuff. We just began the run by getting some money. As you've seen, I've collected a blue rupee in a pot just right after getting 20 rupees in the very first chest of the game. This is due to an RNG manip, which I've done by resetting the game, waiting for the intro screen to blink 4 times, and then actually starting. This puts me on the right RNG to do 3 rolls in the first room and then collect that money. The money route in this game is very exact, unlike some other Zelda games, like probably Link's Awakening, where there's some RNG involved, I guess. But in this run we just have a precise money route and we stick to it. So intro stuff, introducing the lore, introducing Vaati, the main villain, which we will discover later is actually Eslo disciple. Eslo, main character of the cast, which is the green hat that Link wears. And here is the main elements of plots, which is Zelda has turned to stone, and we actually need to save her and find the force. So basically, we are searching for the force in order to turn Zelda to not stone, and Vaati is also searching for the force in order to do evil things, as you do. So intro is actually a little bit more difficult than most people can think. It looks like a bunch of rolling around, but in this game, movement is not bufferable, so you need to be frame precise every time, every roll, if you want to gain time. You cannot queue rolls, you cannot queue sword slashes. As you've seen, I've timed a sword slash and kind of buffered a little bit. And yeah, I'm rolling around Hyrule in order to get to Minish Woods, where we are going to meet Eslo, the mystical hat from the game's name. By the way, this game is called also in Japanese Fushigi no Boshi, which means basically Hat of Wonder, I think. So yeah, Minish Cap, Hat of Mystery, whatever. So this is Eslo, he's being harassed by some mobs, some octo enemies, and we are going to valiantly save him. Eslo quickly realizes he has to get on top of our heads in order to make the adventure less difficult. And he's going to quickly show us how to basically minish eyes. Because, spoiler alert, Eslo is actually a Minish too.
Ouais, mais en vrai, enfin, 1h33 pour moi, c'est genre dans la même cour que mon 1.32, 1.31. Faudrait effectivement que tu runs un peu plus récemment, mais...
So on the left side of the screen we can see my life splits, which is currently comparing to my July PB. So it's going to be red all over basically, since I've kind of not tried to beat my PB since it's like so crazy and beyond my current level of derusting. And I've also got a nice input viewer, which I like very much, developed by Heli and Myth, I believe.
Ah putain. Yeah.
And at some point in this game, it's actually very cool to be able to see the inputs. Okay, so arriving in the Minish village, we don't understand anything of what the locals are saying. So we need to get this darknuts, which will help us basically speak the language for free. Pretty useful.
l'ancêtre, vraiment. Ah, c'est abusé en vrai.
The Minish Elder is showing us the placement of 4 elements, which we will need in order to basically fuse with our currently broken Minish sword from the festival. Okay, so now getting into Deeproot Shrine,
Avec la capture.
first dungeon of the game,
Je crois,
where the earth element is.
Je me souviens plus.
This is currently pretty much glitchless, and we just play the game normally as quickly as possible, rolling nicely, defeating enemies as quickly as we can, and just pure execution. Glitches in this game are going to come basically at the 20-minute mark and are going to be much more frequent starting at Cave of Flame, where we will encounter angle retention,
On sait pas, mais en fait, la version de 2004, c'est un remaster.
which I will explain later.
La première version de Minish Cap, c'était il y a 2000 ans. Quand l'Ocarina Glitch a été créé. Ah, nique sa mère. What? Je peux le toucher ce truc? Oh non, pitié. Ah ouais, carrément, ça me pousse dans l'eau là. Putain, c'est pas ouf ce qui se passe en vrai. Crotte de Lascaux. TMC frame par frame. Putain, quel boulot terrible. Quand Capcom t'embauche et que tu dois peindre chaque frame du jeu. Merde. Ah. Ah oui, va à gauche, yes. Oh, les slugs Insane groupement de slugs. Si, j'ai jamais vu ça.
So, health management in this game is actually a very important thing, and it's actually very easy to die in this game. So I'm going to take a heart there, make sure I'm not dying, which is a thing I usually don't do in my PB attempts, but this is like safety runs, basically. This does not lose very much time, but yeah. So especially in Cave of Flames, health management is like very risky. It's most easy to die in the second dungeon of the game, which is Cave of Flames, and also Palace of Winds, which we are going to see later, which is the 4th dungeon of the game. Actually, the 5th, counting another side dungeon where there's no elements, which is Fortress of Winds, letting us progress through the the game scenario
Un peu tôt.
and collect the most broken item in the game, which is the ocarina.
Oh là là, j'aime pas sa position. Tu comptes 6.
So as you can see, yeah, there's
Non.
like very many ways to be hit by enemies in there, and you've got only 3 hearts at the start, so you're on a
C'est-
razor's edge basically.
Je vais enter chou en plus 30 là, vous allez voir. Ok, là je compte 3. C'était peut-être un quart de seconde de trop. Après, on est pas à ça après. La politique, c'est risque 0. Risque 0, c'est mieux. On est à combien? 16, 19. Et en fait, c'est pas nul à chier. Je crois qu'on sera que en plus 20 à Green Show, je crois. D'ailleurs, je crois ce PV, le 17-26 Earth Elements, c'est vraiment la seule fois où j'ai fait un temps comme ça sur Green Show. C'était un peu abusé. Ah ah. Ah ouais, ça donne l'occasion de voir un truc. Bon, par contre, beaucoup de... Ah, presque. J'étais pas loin, je trouve. Ouais, une race glitchless là.
Okay, so after finishing the first big boss fight
Skill level
of the game,
glitchless.
I'm placing myself in a rather peculiar way in order
Il y a
to
un peu.
walk the furthest. No, actually, the opposite. The least amount of distance in order to advance the cutscene. Basically, when Link finishes a boss where there's an element given to you after it, he walks to the center of the room in order to trigger the element get cutscene. So if you're in the very corner of the room, this can take actually a very long time. Okay, so talking to the Elder gives us access to the west side of Minish Woods, southwest side. We talk to this exiled Minish, who gives us bombs. And bombs are actually very, very important in this run because the bomb route, because there's a money route in this game and also a bomb route which is actually very, very tight. Basically, if you waste more than 2 bombs, you have to get lucky. and this is seen very obviously in Crenel, which we will reach in a little bit. Okay, so this character introduces us to the kinstone mechanic. So he basically lets us know that we can fuse kinstones with strangers that have a kinstone speech bubble on them when you approach them, but we basically say to him no thanks and gain time by just save and quitting, exiting the cutscene. We then reach the Hyrule Town swordsman, Teshin, I believe, who teaches us the spin charge move, which basically just lets us do the iconic Zelda sword move, which is just spinning your sword around. Usually this guard, we show him that we know how to spin our swords in order to get past him, but we don't have the time, and we can save actually 1 to 2 seconds by just drowning in the water and using respawning save tiles in order to trick the camera into letting us past the guard, as we just have seen. This is officially the first glitch we do in the run. Getting into Crenel with 8 bombs and a jar which we just bought for 20 rupees, we get into this cave collecting more rupees for the grip ring later. Okay, so losing a bunch of life there, wasting a bomb, which is usually not a thing I do. I now know that I have just 1 extra bomb to work with.
Bon, on n'a pas des temps sublimes sur Earth Element, mais de toute façon, c'est du nourrissette, du coup, je m'en bats les couilles.
In this part, we are collecting the Mountain Dew from the source of Crenel in order to grow a bean sprout a bit later in the area.
Lourd Crenel pour l'instant. Lourd bongle.
Equipping sword there quickly, because menus are very much a thing we memorize in this game, and is not as tedious as in some Zelda games where menus actually move around. Items in this game are always at the same spot, so we just have to mash the buttons quickly, knowing of course there's no buffer still.
On sait pas, hein, peut-être je prends plus aucun de dégâts après ça. On sait pas. Tout peut arriver.
So here's the green bean sprouts. We grew a normal bean sprout earlier, and now we are going to use our Mountain Dew in order to grow this sprout. Collecting it as Minish, expecting flies to be in the way. They are not. This happens like 1 run out of 20. Throwing it in the hole and making it grow to progress the level. So So here we use a sort of visual trick because everything in this level is at the same layer. So technical term, meaning like the way 2D games trick us into thinking that there are multiple heights using the game's memory.
Ok, donc il va nous manquer une seule bombe malgré tout.
And since this mushroom is at the same layer as us, we can actually use the ghost jar on it to use it and get on the platform. Buying the grip ring here, which is going to help us climb up the mountain, which we are going to do hopefully without taking any damage from falling rocks on this big wall there. So these rocks are entirely RNG, and since Crunel RNG moves so fast, it's virtually impossible unless you're a task to avoid them. So taking one rock of damage, which hit us for half a heart, which is a lot. You can definitely die at this part of the level. Getting into this area that has a sort of theme that is a reference to Link to the Past with the rain and everything. Intro sequence of Link to the Past, I think.
Ça va.
Pushing this rock. So this is a very long puzzle. Not much going on right there.
Moment où on peut faire deux crénels. Voilà.
So cool moments in the run. It is guaranteed that with this placement you actually suck this enemy and kill him by throwing it against the wall.
Pourquoi je vole en avance moi?
Trying to not lose more health than I've already done. And knowing at the start of Cave of Flames there's 2 pots containing 2 hearts that are going to help me survive through the rest of Cave of Flames. Making my way to the Minish mine, the Mellery mines, where Mellery basically tells us that while we are going through Cave of Flames, he is going to fix the broken Pickery sword of the festival. And after fixing it, we are going to discover much later actually that we can make clones with this sword, which is basically the main mechanic of the Minish Cap, after getting Minish, of course.
Peut-être si j'ai 2 cœurs et quart en dessous.
Okay, getting into Cave of Flames at the 29th minute mark, which is actually a pretty good time. missing some bombs there, and I actually run out, so I'm forced to use this guy as a bomb. Here I couldn't remember which pots contain 5 guaranteed bombs, so I've tried several. Killing these guys with sword stabs.
Okay.
So when you charge a spin slash, you actually hold your sword in front of you, which has a hitbox which hits enemies and is cancelled right after. And of course this deals way less damage than usual slashes, so we just use them when the enemy is like 1 HP basically. So collecting this mandatory bomb drop from this spot, getting extra cheeky, collecting this one, getting good RNG on these guys, and actually killing the most difficult Helmazor before killing the one I took the mask off of. As you can see, there are a lot of enemies in this dungeon and a lot of opportunities to lose additional health. Getting a little bit confused there and solving this puzzle. And now we are going to enter the glitch 4 phase of the game, introducing diagonal angle retention. So doing that right after collecting 50 rupees, mandatory in order to buy a mushroom later. Getting into these tornadoes in order to get to the other side of the room in order to solve the rest of the puzzle. And so this chest is on a sort of pillar that we can push and pull, and we are going to come out of this hole diagonally in order to pull it diagonally by retaining our angle out of the hole. So pulling it diagonally into the out of bounds section of the room, deleting this loading zone, which just help us navigate the level entirely out of bounds and getting there without using our key. So very nice. And getting to the mid-boss fight, which is actually on a pretty tight timing and sort of dense. We get the patchy cane, which help us like flip things, and is also going to help us beat the final boss of the game. A little bit after finishing this room, we are going to showcase the second use of diagonal angle retention again, in order to get very quickly to the boss of this dungeon. So getting on this minecart, flipping the track, and getting to this room with more rollerblades and another pillar with a thing on it, which basically screams pull me diagonally, which is what we do. We move this enemy out of the way do diagonal angle retention,
Putain,
and once again, because the enemy blocked our thing,
c'est pour me faire chier aujourd'hui.
do another diagonal angle retention to get on layer 2 by pulling the lever inside the wall at the same time as taking damage from the enemy we stuck in there. Which gets us to the boss room, skipping like half of the
Ça va.
dungeon remaining.
C'est un peu dégueulasse en vrai, mais...
So this is Glee Rock. So fights pretty standard. Nothing to see here instead,
Il y a des
unless noticing that there are Glee Rocks on the wall. So getting a bit scared of my health right now, and I'm going to hope that there are some more hearts in there. Because you can definitely die if you get hit by one of these falling rocks
Hello, Bjork.
at half a heart of HP. Last cycle of Glee Rock, and we are going to align ourselves in order to nicely eliminate its shell.
Ok.
So here for this trick, this next trick, after getting the sword back, I switch controllers in order to execute better a sword turn trick for the next glitch. So basically what you need to know is that in this game, as I've said before, everything nothing in the game can be buffered unless it's several sword slashes in a row. So this is pretty good to mash your sword on enemies, but sword slashes are exactly 16 frames long, and if you want to turn Link around cardinally without moving, you have to slash your sword once and then hold a direction and slash your sword again before the first
Le pied de
slashing animation finishes, which is a thing I've usually a hard time doing, and I need to de-rust a bunch.
je pense.
And so we are doing that in order to retain our push value from this enemy we moved right against the wall, and colliding with the enemy again facing the cliff just launches us out of bounds, helping us get to this area without triggering a 2-minute cutscene. So this is Criminal Clip,
Non!
beautifully executed in one try. So here I got kind of bad luck from the Moblin placement, which is a crazy enemy because of his lens hitbox, which basically inflicts you with one whole heart of damage every time you get touched by it. But on the bright side, I have a backup for this because I need health for the next part of the game, which is very heavy in RNG manipulation, which require you to have basically more than 1.5 hearts of health. So I'm going to catch a backup fairy in a little bit, but not before actually visiting Syrup, the witch, which sell us for 70 rupees. Actually 50, I think. 60. 60 rupees, the mushroom that is going to awaken the shoemaker, as I've said before. Okay, so collecting the key, because the Malon family... Malon is the girl. The Long Ranch family actually managed to lock themselves out of their own house. So very unfortunate, but we helped them get back into it. Okay, so buying the actual mushroom for 60 rupees and then coming back for the shoemaker in order to progress through the game's story. We also needed to read the swamp sign in order to trigger the flag that basically tells the game that we actually visited the swamp, which in turn triggers the fact that the shoemaker actually sleeps, and then we can do the rest of this side quest. So we collected the Pegasus boots, which help us run on the swamp mud. Okay, so we collect the backup fairy right here, which also has a 1 in 16 chance of not dropping a fairy and dropping a kinstone instead. So I was quote unquote lucky to get the fairy there, of course. And quickly progressing through the swamp in order to collect the area's item, the bow and arrow. After some pesky enemies. And after that, we save and quit to get back to the beginning of the swamp and execute very, very tight RNG manipulations. And I mean very tight, because there are a lot of enemies in this level which basically shuffle the RNG around like multiple times every frame. So we have to be very precise in order to manipulate this enemy path finding getting it right next to the edge of this little mound. And we are going to push him around into this little corner in order to try to execute what is called the p-hat clip. So this enemy is a p-hat, enemy that comes back in some Zelda licensed games. And we are going to push him right next to the only fence that the developers misplaced in the game by one single pixel, which help us like use the layer 2 from the bridge to get right onto layer 2 outside of the bridge, letting us just skim through the whole level. And the next, getting right into Fortress of Winds, which is going to lead to more RNG manips. And also RNG manips layered on top of each other, because right after manipping an enemy in the last room of this sequence, we are going to collect a kinstone drop from him, which is not guaranteed, and continue the RNG manip after looking at a sort of sparkle pattern from the kinstone, which is going to be two possible patterns, because these patterns depend not on RNG but on global timer, which is basically, in layman's terms, the number of frames that you last resetted the game. And here I listen to Link's rolls sounds in order to determine which pattern I'm working with and adapt accordingly. So I'm continuing this manip, going through this crazy room with a bunch of enemies with a very frame-tight pathing, in order to get to a darknut fight, so sword and shield enemies, which we are going to defeat very quickly by pinning them against a wall and collecting another kinstone, which is the second to last kinstone that we are going to use in this route. Breaking this not obvious wall, I've struggled a little bit when I was a kid there. Getting the merle mitts and starting yet another RNG manip in order to manip the same armors from before, in order to get to the portal on the left side of the room. So collecting this red final kinstone, which we are going to use to fuse with the stranger in Hyrule Town, manipping this almost into this corner in order to clip through the corner and get to this portal, which is going to let us execute what is called portal items, clanking the mole mitts onto it, which gets us misplaced on top of the portal, then waiting for 5 good possible frames of this bomb explosion animation, in order to jump off of the portal and be basically bombed into layer 2. And just as a reminder, when I say frame tight, This game runs at 60 FPS, so basically frame perfect is that much more difficult than games at 30, and a 5 frame window is like a 12th of a second. So here, this is Mazal, classic Zelda enemies, so with eyes and big floating hands. And I need to intentionally take more damage than I need to be taking in order to finish the fight at preferably less than 3/4 of a heart, because I'm going to do what is called a death abuse right after this sequence. So taking half a heart of damage there, getting into the right range of health I need. Finding the correct pillar according to the rule that no two pillars can be the same back to back. And dodging the full heart piece that we get at the end of this boss fight in order to retain our damaged health. Getting the ocarina, which is, as I've said before, the most broken item in this game, because it lets us do what is called ocarina glitch, which lets us freeze time, freeze enemies, NPCs, and walk on water. But the constraint to that is that usually we need an open door in order to do ocarina glitches. That is done usually by just walking in an open door, or actually performing the foretold death abuse, which is why we have so little health right now, because we are going to do OG Ocarina Glitch right away. A funny thing about Ocarina Glitches, shortening it to OG for the rest of this commentary, is that it is actually frame perfect, but it's like the easy kind of frame perfect, quote unquote. Because the inputs are basically hold up on your controller against a doorway, and then the frame after you need to be still holding up and then press the button for the ocarina. This basically plays the ocarina, cancel the animation, and gets you stuck in OG state, which freezes enemies, NPCs, and lets you walk on water, as I've said before. So I get against the doorway, I perform the OG first try, or second try after playing it, rather, and this helps me do this portal jump to get to the third Tingle brother and doing the third fuse of the run. These fuses are actually optional in the main storyline, but this helps us collect a very broken item, which is the magical boomerang, which you basically can control the direction of, and this helps us at 2 instances in dungeons, opening big boss doors and getting out of bounds. collecting this fairy in order to do a second death abuse, which is the one that will let us walk on water in a little while. So we've completed all the fuses for the item I mentioned. We are going to collect it, and right after collecting it, we need to damage down to half a heart again and get to the temple droplets, the water element dungeon.
Qui peut fuse avec le Stranger dans ce coffre spécifiquement. Ce coffre contient un red W.
Doing this very long puzzle of flipping switches, which triggers this ladder, letting us gain access to the last central room with the chest containing the magical boomerang. Okay, so here I get the subpixel set up for the thorns, letting me damage down much quicker than just getting hit by thorns every half a second or so. So I save for safety before doing the death abuse, as I do in marathon runs. I do the setup, open the door right as I'm dying, and perform an OG second try again. Getting onto the portal, cancelling the OG state, because without cancelling it we can't get into the temple droplets, and we get into the temple droplets before the 1 hour mark, which is pretty good actually. Okay, so you'll know, having played this game, that ice physics in this game is actually very annoying. So we mostly boot dash through every ice surface in the dungeon.
Non, qu'est-ce que je fais?
Here I roll by accident. I get onto layer 2 because I've just gotten Ocarina glitch, which basically lets you retain your layer as long as you don't roll. Because rolling onto, say, a layer 1 surface basically updates, lets the game know you've updated your layer again. Everything that OG does is confuse the game into thinking it does not need to update its layer memory, knowledge, whatever. Doing the trick with the boomerang, letting us skip most of temple droplets and getting right to a recycle boss, which is blue chew. So just like green chew at the start, but make it electric. After defeating blue chew, we will get the lantern, which is actually mandatory to beat the boss of this dungeon. the boss of this dungeon being Big Octo, since we are Minish, for which we do the famed octo clip, which is the big tech of this run. So subpixel setup for a frame perfect trick. Looks pretty hard, sounds pretty hard, is pretty hard. Yeah. And after doing Octoclip, we actually use the number of tries for Octoclip in order to determine what we need to adjust for an RNG manip for Big Octo, because we manip the fights in order to not lose 25 seconds or so from just bad possible RNG. Which is what we get in the third phase of Big Octo if she decides to spit rocks. If she decides to suck us up instead of immediately spitting rocks. Okay, so starting the manip now, we need to push this pot to my right to the end of the room. This is because doing Octoclip requires the janky physics of pot corners using ice physics. So we do this subpixel setup, and we do Octoclip first try by spacing two R presses 20 frames apart exactly. Here I've done first try, so I need to adjust the RNG by doing one dash and one roll, and I do the rest of the fights accordingly, as tightly and precisely as possible in order to be right on track with RNG. So here I've watched two cues, which is watching my shield button for falling rocks and watching if I've been hit by rocks or not. Since I've seen a rock fall on my A button and I've not been hit, I know that I need to roll 8 times according to a specific flow chart. Here I watch falling rocks again. This tells me I need to roll 8 times again, which I do. And then I get the right RNG in order to finish the fights. Also maniping octo movements in order to get as close to the center of the room as possible.
Let's go.
In order to spend not as much time walking to the element.
On est bien, on est bien, on est bien. Maintenant, il ne me reste plus qu'à voir.
So now there's just 2 dungeons left,
Et je serais content de
which are Palace of Winds,
Vas-y,
which contain the last element we need,
balance tout.
and then the last dungeon after that is Dark Hyrule Castle, which is basically Vaati taking control of Hyrule Castle and turning it evil, basically.
De toute façon, il y a vraiment que la Sword Art qui est bien à faire, je pense. Je pense qu'il faut déjà faire beaucoup de flavors.
Before getting into Palace of Winds, we need to actually fuse our acquired elements in order to be able to be making clones, because there's some clone puzzle at the start of Palace of Winds that requires us to be able to make clones, which the community has not been able to skip yet. So possibly in the future, if we manage to skip that puzzle, we would be able to not fuse elements and not get to the sanctuary until Dark Hyrule Castle, which would save quite some time, honestly. Here I'm fusing my first two elements, then resetting the room by saving quitting, because the room does not allow us to fuse the water elements unless we've exited and came back again. So abusing of some save and quit mechanic here, fusing the water elements, and then right after we are going to head back to Palace Winds.
Donc ouais, ce que je veux à DHC... Après je parle du DHC, mais il y a encore tout Palace of Winds à faire quand même. Mais je veux le garde dash, je veux réussir ma manip, ça serait bien, même si c'est pas très difficile à faire. Et je veux quoi? Et je veux...
Okay, so getting into the teleporter we opened up before, thanks to the stranger in Hyrule Town. And here we are going to make use of the most broken aspect of Ocarina, because if we weren't able to do OGs there and like skip through these NPCs blocking doorways, we would be forced to add like 10 minutes to this run doing the side quest to get into the Wind Tribe. So we do 2 OGs skipping these NPCs, and then we get into Palace of Winds, which is actually very cool to watch, because there's like so much cool movements with the cape and with some enemies, and basically there's a lot of things going on at all times. So dodging quite skillfully the P-hats there, dodging these very scary skeletons, killing some bombs off screen with my boomerang, and killing another one right here. So here I miss my boomerang throw. Place a bomb at this switch in order to trigger the next bridge thing. I managed to actually not pick up my bomb there, and then I start doing the Wizrobe fights, which is a very scripted fight Not that difficult to do, but looks very, very cool.
C'est comme ça.
I collect an extra heart there in order to get to full life. And use my cape to transition without going through all these clouds. I do a sort of very tight jump here just to fail hitting my B button, and I now need to do it again, sadly. So doing it again,
J'ai appuyé sur Shift.
actually pressing B this time, getting onto these clouds and preparing now for a pixel perfect setup for a stair clip, which will help us get out of bounds in the dungeon. So here I align the right side of Link's shadow with some pixels in the stairs, and this helps me clip through.
La main, elle m'a fait peur de fou là. Je vais pas mentir.
Very cool movement in this room,
Nice.
which help us get through the room very quickly. Equipping the cape. And getting to the 2019 trick that ended an era of suffering, of people needing to do several frame perfect tricks in this dungeon. Thankfully, I never ran this game at this time. By the way, this was Wilbur a trick, as I've said, found in 2019, which makes use of diagonal angle retention again. So jumping nicely through these clouds. Fighting these guys for a key that I will catch in the air. So mid-air key, and collecting 50 rupees in order to get to a nice number of money. Collecting, just in case, this fairy from the spark and me, and doing the boomerang out of bounds trick again. Skipping like half of this dungeon again, and getting to the boss of the dungeon directly, which is a guild couple, notoriously hard boss for beginners, and very actually RNG heavy boss if you don't know what you're doing. And this boss, if you fail some timing at any time, your errors accumulate and snowball into more and more failure. And so yeah, this boss is actually very stressful if you've got a good run going. But as long as you manage to do everything nicely, it's actually fine. But yeah, not a very nice boss. For example, the timing to hit the eye here is actually very tight, which I missed, so I hit the eye only one time, and I need to spin it again in order to defeat this cycle of Blue Making my clones on the way to Red Georg, and dodging the balls that deal 1 heart of damage. Getting onto the Blue Georg again, eliminating it, and wait for these guys to appear in order to dodge them and finish off this boss, which was actually very nicely done. So yeah, this is one of the best sort of times you can get fighting your couple. I lost some time on the split because I don't split at enter Georg and failed the cloud trick once, which lost me several seconds. So don't mind the plus 15 there. Pay no mind to it, of course. Okay, so finally getting to this mini fight, introducing us to another string of lore, where Ezlo reveals afterwards that Vaati is actually his Minish disciple, and that he collected the hat of the wishing hat right here, which basically reveals what's deep hidden in your heart. And since Vaati was evil from the start, the wishing hat made him like a very black, maleficent, evil Minish. Okay. So like sort of wizard color going on. Very nice. Actually love Vaati design. And finally getting to the sanctuary to get the fuse for our last element. Because as we were told previously, if we manage to collect all elements and fuse our sword with all elements, we get the famed Four Sword, which is the sword that is going to let us free Zelda from her stone prison. But sadly, Vaati has other plans for us after we get the sword. So here we learn that we can actually throw beams of light with the sword, defeating stone things. Stone sorcery or whatever. Here's the toilet break of the run, where people usually do the joke of, oh no, you've reset the run. This is of course mandatory for any TMC marathon. So in this additional part of the lore, we learn that actually all along the Force was inside of Zelda's body. The Force that, surprise, Vaati is looking for. So Vaati actually teleports behind us and tells us that, oh my god, I actually need to unfreeze Zelda to collect the Force in order to be more evil. Which is what he's going to do while we are beating Dark Hyrule Castle. So here I do what is called cutscene walking. So like layering the Eslo trigger, where Eslo talks to us while the cutscene from freeing the minister plays. And we layer 3 of these on top of each other in order to walk through these cutscenes. Doing guard skip here, which looks actually very funny, which lets us slide against the wall while using the boots. Here I enter Dark Hyrule Castle at a very specific subpixel alignment, which helps us get this stair clip first try every time, if I don't get hit by the pesky moblin to my left. Sliding against this wall, which was also a subpixel setup, but much easier to do, of course. And exiting Hyrule Castle and entering it again in order to make the game remember that when we save and quit, we don't spawn at the beginning of the sanctuary, and we spawn at this doorway instead. Here, doing a actually pretty hard bomb trick, which skip the need for us to clone ourselves in order to reflect the cannonballs. And this is actually a pretty hard trick to execute, which only saves like 10 seconds basically. Doing these puzzles, trying to menu through these, save and quitting to get back through this door, doing Ocarina Glitch in order to get on layer 2 after I reach the stairs, which are back at the place where I did Cannonball strat. So right here we get onto layer 2, and we can then dash across Dark Hyrule Castle. Because in this dungeon there's 4 keys you need to collect, which lets you get the boss door key just right after getting to Vaati. So doing OG again, first try, every time of course. And here I'm trying to execute a manip. I've tried reverse engineering from TGH old PB at the time. And so I look at these gibdos here and look at my notes, which say that this is -2 on my RNG state, basically. And -2 in this language just tells us that I need to basically roll or even slash 2 more times in order to advance RNG. Sadly, I get an accidental room transition, which breaks my RNG knowledge currently. So I just do the rest of the rooms as usual. So doing these door jumps glitches, which is done because of OG. Killing these enemies there. Getting through this room, rolling as little as possible, because I was still hoping I'd still be on the right RNG track. Because I needed to get rupees on this drop here from the bomb explosions, which I didn't get, so I just assume I don't know the RNG there. Here I do this fight, which is actually not that hard, but is quite easy to mess up.
Bon, pas de manip, c'est pas très grave.
I then go on the left side of Dark Hyrule Castle, kill this enemy, and do the next puzzle room. There's a trick there which uses diagonal angle retention again, which sadly I don't get here, which basically helps you gain 3 seconds by pushing this block diagonally and getting to the stairs instantly, instead of having to fall into this room and just climb the stairs again. Getting the 4th key, and now we are ready actually to fight Vaati. So Vaati, from this point where I reset the game, is one huge RNG manipulation, which is actually pretty hard to do. Most runners, even top runners, sometimes don't get Vaati 2 manip. Most do Vaati 1 at least. And here I actually managed to get Vaati 1 manip in full and enter Vaati 2 manipped and do like half of Vaati 2 manip also. So here I still know my RNG. This room, very trivial. You have to roll and just cape above this enemy because the door is already opened. Here you slash as fast as possible in order to not mess up the manip. You then slash these enemies at very precise locations in order to progress the RNG. And here I enter this room with 3 darknuts, which is still on manip. I wait for this guy to finish his slash. Kill this guy because I know he's gonna dash from the manip. He's gonna drop a heart which I collect, which is still expected from the manip. And then I enter Vaati fight, still on the right track with RNG.
Donc, tout ce que je vais faire, c'est pas mourir.
So counting my hits, advancing RNG 3 times more here by slashing 3 times in the air. Here, very tight timing for the eyes. Positioning myself in order to take damage, in order to know the cue to when to gotcha. Knowing the teleport here. And here, there's basically 2 possible outcomes. Here he actually teleports, so I know what I'm supposed to do. Here I wait for the smoke, slash once, and dust 2 times with my boots to get in Vaati 2 with the correct RNG. So he's going to go to the right side immediately, and I'm actually ready to meet him with my arrows. So waiting for the electric attack here to make my clones. Deliver 2 arrows and 2 more by moving around, slashing immediately before he does the electric thing. And then I mess up the RNG because I did not see the rock falling on the right side. but there's like not very many patterns. So basically, I expect some movement from Vaati here, some known movement. So he moves around, I make my clones, and I defeat Vaati 2 swiftly. Making sure I actually get my kill, waiting for the less risky moment to do my charge. And then Vaati 2 is done.
Ok, vaati manip. Dans-
So if I had actually done Vaati 2 manip in full, it would have taken much less time, because the end of Vaati 2 manip, you reveal the 4 eyes on the bottom side, and then he just stop right in his tracks to do some electrical attack, and then you just clone yourself and have time to immediately slash him, which is actually very cool. Okay, so we finally are able to free Zelda. So since the Dark Hyrule Castle is falling into ruin and basically breaking down, because Vaati is no longer present to support it, we flee to the sanctuary. And surprise, Vaati actually has a third phase. Which is called Vaati Transfigured, I believe. So he will plunge his arm into the ground, letting us patchy cane the arm in order to reveal a hidden Minish room in which there are like 8 eyes with 1 odd eye out of the rest. We do that 2 times and then finally play tennis with Vaati 3. So waiting for the arm plunge RNG there, which can actually take a long time, up to 15 to 20 seconds, I believe, sometimes. Throwing my boomerang haphazardly, expecting it to hit on chance the odd one out. Managing to find it, and then let's play tennis. So yeah, usual end of the game boss fights. Many Zelda players know it's like a sort of custom to play tennis with Ganon. This time it's with Vaati, so yeah. And then I finished the run by hitting Vaati 2 times with my bomb, just for the swag. And yeah, it's time on Vaati eye becoming flashing red.
33-16.
Okay, so thanks for listening to all my commentary on the run, and have a good one. Thank you.
Plutôt solide. Hein. Plutôt solide.